Hello, everybody. So, Anakin Skywalker, the guy who murdered a bunch of younglings, he gets a bad reputation for turning to the dark side. However, there was actually some good reasons, and there were some solid events that led to him turning to the dark side. That when you look at it, it completely makes sense. So, I'm going to be talking about each and every significant one of those that happened in today's episode of Star Wars Nerds and Geeks. Anakin's hard life started from the moment he was born. He didn't even get a solid second of just perfectly normal life. No, from the moment he was born, he just had a horrible, rough life. First off, he was born with no father. It's kind of weird, right? I talk about it in this episode on screen more, but yeah, no father. Wouldn't that be a little weird growing up? Like you're growing up, and then you look at all your friends, and they all have dads, and you ask your mom, Mom, where's my dad?" And she's like, "Oh, he just doesn't exist." Like, how weird is that? And, like, not even having somebody to like go find or like to avenge his death or to hear stories about. There's literally no one there, so he just had no father. And I assume that's gotta be rough. And but that's not the only hardship of his early life. He was also born into slavery. By the age of 3, he was sold. He was in Gardula the Hutt's. He was Gardula the Hutt slave. He became Watto's slave. I mean, he was just born into a life of slavery. It was normal for him. In the novelization of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, as Padme's talking to Anakin, she's just thinking, wow, he's talking about slavery so normally. Like, it's just a part of life. It's almost like he's just talking about how he has a nose or a foot. It's just a part of him that you wouldn't ever, that he just doesn't think he'd ever live without, which is kind of crazy. That it's just such a normal thing that living a life as a slave is just, just completely normal for him. And so that has to be something that was just really hard on him. And I'm sure, like, his mom was very supportive and whatnot, but it was just him and his mom, which also had to be rough. He definitely had friends, but I don't think it doesn't seem like he has very many friends. It seems more like Anakin's more of a loner, and he gets into fights a lot. I don't think this is in the movie, but there was a scene in episode 1 that probably got deleted of just Anakin fighting with some other kids. That just goes to show how he didn't get along with people well. So definitely, just by having no friends, no father, just his mom, maybe one friend, and a life of slavery, that was his entire childhood, which is a very, very rough start for him. But it doesn't get easier from there. In fact, it actually gets harder for Anakin. All his life, Anakin has heard about the Jedi, how they were valiant peacekeepers that went throughout the galaxy, providing hope and inspiration to everybody that they meet. They were formidable warriors, but they were kind at heart, and they were just the greatest thing to young Anakin's little eyes. So, and Anakin has always wanted to be a Jedi. He's always wanted to travel among the stars and bring hope to people, free all the slaves on Tatooine. He's always wanted to be a Jedi. So imagine Anakin's excitement when a Jedi comes to rescue him from slavery. It has to be the greatest feeling ever, but it doesn't last very long. Soon after, Anakin learns that that while he's going to be freed from slavery, his mom is not. Which that has to be very, very hard on him. Anakin's a very selfless person, especially at a young age. You see that just by in episode 1 where he meets completely random strangers, invites them into his house, and is like, yo, let me invite you into my house, let me win a race for you, let me do this and let me do that, all for you. He's very nice to them. He's, just very selfless. So imagine now the selfless young kid having to be selfish and leaving his mother in slavery while he gets to be free. Now that has to be very, very hard. But he does it because he's always wanted to be a Jedi. And he meets Qui-Gon and he ends up meeting Obi-Wan, two incredible Jedi, and he has to be so excited right now. But it doesn't look up for him. They transport him straight into the middle of a war zone. A war zone on Naboo. They transport him straight to a war zone. That has to be just incredibly traumatic, just to be in the middle of fighting at 9 years old, as if he hasn't had enough trauma in his life already. He gets taken into this war zone, and he's walking right alongside these Jedi and these soldiers as they fight the battle droids. He's just walking with them. Like, that's... There's a reason that 9-year-olds aren't soldiers. And so Anakin ends up hiding in one of the starships. And he's safe from the battle. However, not for very long. As you know, he goes up into this space battle, and now he is not just standing by during a battle. He's actually fighting a battle at 9 years old. That has to be, I've said this 1,000 times, but that has to be traumatic and just a really, really tough experience on him. And then to further that experience, when he wins the battle in space, he single-handedly destroys the entire droid control ship. That's pretty cool. But then he comes down and he realizes that the Jedi that he looked up to, Qui-Gon Jinn, is now dead. That would just be horrible. First, he went through all this terrible hardship of early life, and then he had to leave his mom, go into the middle of war, and then when he ends the battle victorious, he finds that the first Jedi he's ever met, the guy he looks up to, is now dead. At 9 years old. That's crazy. But does it get better than him? Well, this is a recurring theme. Nope, it does not get any better. Anakin, in between episodes 1 and 2, he trains to be a Jedi. He's trying his best. He really wants to be a Jedi. But everyone is rejecting him. The Jedi Order, as I mentioned earlier, he looked up to the Jedi, but they're not fulfilling his expectations. In episode 1, they rejected him. And in between episode 1 and 2, in episodes 2 and in episode 3, he's just being almost not necessarily tormented, but the Jedi just aren't living up to his expectations. They all don't trust him. They don't like him. And they're not the people that he once thought that they were. That would be kind of a really tough realization. Come episode 2, he at least has a friend in Obi-Wan, and he gets to meet this one girl that he had a crush on while he was 9 and she was 15. Don't worry about it. And he meets her, and that has to be cool. But then she again acts like she's talking to him like she's a little boy, which has to be hard. And she's awkward around that. That's all really tough. And furthermore, Anakin, he's 19 years old in episode 2, and he's already proven to be an incredible warrior, an incredible pilot, an incredible force wielder, just really powerful and awesome. But while that's really cool, that's also, he's building up high expectations for himself, and he has to continue to improve to keep up, to make sure that those high expectations are met and exceeded. So that's really tough. And episode 2, this is where we start seeing Anakin and Palpatine's relationship start to grow. And Anakin and Palpatine, I mean, Palpatine was really, really smart in that he helped Anakin from a young age become a Sith Lord. He had been nurturing Anakin ever since he first saw him on Naboo to become Darth Vader. So you have to blame a lot of this on Sheev Palpatine. But there are some other factors. For instance, let's continue through episode 2, and now he is with Senator Amidala as he has to protect her. Now this must be fulfilling his dreams, because he's talking to her about how he hates sand, and then suddenly boom, they're together. Like, it's just magic. Absolutely crazy. It's amazing, filling all of his wildest expectations and dreams. But it's also definitely got to be at least a little bit nerve-wracking, because they're not supposed to be together. A senator, that would be a sort of, I don't know what the right word is. That just wouldn't be right for a senator to be with another political person, really. And then Jedi just, in all, aren't supposed to have emotional, like romantic bonds. So for both of them, it's kind of just not allowed. So that has to add even more stress onto Anakin's plate after all that he's feeling, just even more piled on. Like, at this point, we start to see Anakin's getting even more and more and more overwhelmed. Just more and more stuff is being piled onto his plate. Come at the end of episode 2, he fights Count Dooku and he embarrasses himself. He rushes in, confident of his abilities, and is just thrown to the ground. He doesn't even get a fighting chance. He's just completely outmatched by Count Dooku. That has to be an awful, awful morale. What would be the opposite of a morale boost? A morale unboost. That's an awful morale unboost. But wait, there's more. Did I say that already? I forgot. But yeah, there is more. There is always more with Anakin. It's just piling on and on and on. He's just burdened with so much stuff. There really hasn't been that many good moments for Anakin to look back on, especially just looking at the movies. It's all just been darkness with a tiny bit of light, and then darkness, 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 light, darkness, all darkness. And so, come Clone Wars, the Clone Wars just has to be an incredibly stressful time for Anakin. He has to keep up his relationship with Padme while keeping it a secret. He has to learn to become a general and fight in a war. He has to learn how to become a master, how to mentor somebody, and he was just forced onto that job. And he has to learn how to take his troopers' lives seriously, and how to actually value them, and how to keep them alive. And that's all is really, really hard on him. And keep in mind, Anakin's only like 19 years old in the beginning of the Clone Wars, and he only grows to be 22 by the end of it. So again, he's really young. But the Clone Wars, honestly, besides all what I mentioned before, there wasn't much going on with Anakin. There was the fact, one light I will add is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan was a great light for Anakin. He was probably the only person that could have kept Anakin to the light side if the cards had been played better, and if the Jedi Council was a little bit nicer. Maybe Anakin never would have turned to the dark side if Obi-Wan was there with him. Because Obi-Wan is one of the greatest friends that Anakin's had. Obi-Wan knew about Anakin and Padme, yet he respected them and he valued their relationship, so he kept it a secret and he didn't tell anybody. And Obi-Wan just always has been there for Anakin. Yeah, they've just had a really close bond. So Obi-Wan was the one person that could have kept Anakin to the light side, which is why Palpatine waited until Obi-Wan was on Utapau, as far away from Coruscant as possible, before he turned Anakin, because he knew how dangerous Obi-Wan was to keep keeping Anakin on the light side. And there's one more thing in the Clone Wars. That is Ahsoka. Anakin didn't want Ahsoka, but he got Ahsoka anyways, and he ends up becoming they end up getting a really, really close bond. But then what ends up happening is that is broken, and Ahsoka breaks his heart. She gets blamed for bombing the temple, and he does everything in his power to prove that she's innocent. And when he finally does that, he thinks, okay, we can all get back to normal now. And then when he asks her back, Ahsoka says no, and she rejects him, and she leaves. And that was the first of many tipping points for Anakin. Just having Ahsoka leave him like that was probably one of the worst moments of his life. And then further on in the Clone Wars, he meets up with Ahsoka again, and he's so excited to see her again. He's like, Ahsoka, do you think you could come back? And she goes, nope. Yeah, poor Anakin. And finally, episode 3, the moment that Anakin snapped. Let me break it down for you. Sheev Palpatine. Why do I keep calling him Sheev? That's just gut reaction. So Mr. Palpatine has been trying to turn Anakin for so long now. So he's just been slowly feeding dark side thoughts into Anakin's head. So that's Sheev. Then Jedi Council doesn't like Anakin. Mace Windu hates Anakin's guts. Maybe he doesn't, but I feel like he does. Also, Jedi Council doesn't trust Anakin. Also, Jedi Council refuses to give Anakin the title of Master. They put him on the Council. Only Masters can be on the Council. But they're like, no, Anakin, you suck so much, we're not even going to give you the rank of Master. We're going to disobey our own rules to make sure that you don't get the title of Master. That's cold. And then that's not even the worst of it. Then we get to Anakin, Padme, and Obi-Wan. He's already had his heart broken twice by Ahsoka. And then what happens is he turns to the dark side because of Sheev and because of the Jedi Order. But he has a moment to redeem himself. And that moment comes twice. First with Padme, and then with Obi-Wan, his wife and his best friend. So first let's talk about Padme. He meets up with Padme, and he's so happy to see her. But then she starts talking about all the terrible things that he's been doing, like almost as if she's scared of him, like almost as if she's calling Anakin a monster. And now suddenly Anakin's like, well, the one person he had left is suddenly betraying him, and he doesn't know what to think. But then Obi-Wan appears, and what is one of the worst timings possible, Obi-Wan appears. And Anakin, fueled by the dark side, voices a suspicion, a fear that he has had for a very long time, which is that Obi-Wan and Padme has been having a secret affair. He fears that the child that Padme carries is actually Obi-Wan's. And so now not only is he betrayed by his wife, but also he's betrayed by his best friend. And so in a moment of hate, he starts trying to kill the woman he loves. Luckily, he doesn't, but still, that's tough. And now the woman that he loves has betrayed him, and he's only got his former best friend, ObiWan, but immediately ObiWan turns on Anakin. Not you don't really even see hesitation. He just suddenly turns on him, and now Anakin is feeling all alone. That's what this is all about. I've said it from the beginning. This is all about Anakin feeling alone. It's him versus the galaxy. Everybody's turned on him. There were only a few people left. There was Padme left, but she turned on him. There was Obi-Wan left, but he turned on him. And who else is there? Well, there's nobody. There's not anybody left. It's the entire galaxy against Anakin. Or I suppose now he's Darth Vader, but I'll keep calling him Anakin. And so Anakin and Obi-Wan enter their fight. And after the fight, we see Anakin reach out to Obi-Wan. And in an extended version of this, Anakin is actually asking Obi-Wan for help. He's saying, "Help me, Obi-Wan, please." And Obi-Wan says no. That's been a recurring theme. Just people saying no. And Obi-Wan says no. And Anakin feels the last link he had to the good life slip away as Obi-Wan rejects him and turns around and walks away. And now Anakin is truly alone. He had a tough early life. Everybody, the Jedi, who he thought were his idols, ended up becoming not his idols. They weren't his heroes. They were actually not that impressive. Everyone that he knew and loved died or left him. All of his mother, I forgot to mention his mother, but his mother died in his arms. His Padawan, Ahsoka, left him twice. His wife, Padme, turned against him and, in Anakin's eyes, betrayed him by being with Obi-Wan, though in reality she wasn't. And then his best friend, Obi-Wan, immediately turned on Anakin, and even when Anakin's last shred of light in him reached out to Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan turned away and rejected it. And so now Anakin has nobody left as he turns into Darth Vader. And in this last scene of as Vader is being born, we hear him asking about Padme. He's hoping that she's all right. And then Emperor Palpatine confirms the worst. He says, "It seems that in your hatred, you have killed her." Which it showed him that Padme was gone, which was in of itself terrible. But not only that, I said earlier that it was the entire galaxy versus Anakin, that everybody hated Anakin. But now not only that, Anakin's killed the woman he loved, and so he hates himself now. And so now it's not only the entire galaxy against Anakin, it's everybody, including Anakin, against Anakin. Anakin is everybody hates him, including himself. And so now he is truly alone. He doesn't even have himself on his own side. And that is why Anakin turned to the dark side. Now first, I just wanted to say that this is how Luke stood out from the crowd. Nobody, the galaxy, the Jedi Order, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, even Padme, even Leia, none of them believed in Vader, but Luke did. And that's why Anakin turned to the light side. It's because he actually had somebody who believed in him, who was with him, and suddenly Anakin wasn't alone anymore. And so that's why Anakin turned back to the light side. However, right here, just a moment of quick silence for some of the people that Anakin lost in his life, both from death, from separation, from feeling betrayed. Yeah. Now, Anakin has had a very tough life, and when you stack it all up, it makes total sense that he turned to the dark side. However, it's not an excuse for him turning to the dark side. It was still Anakin's choice, even though everything was against him. And even though it's what makes sense, and even though it's obvious that he's probably going to turn to the dark side, it was Anakin's choice. He still had Padme, who cared for him. He still had ObiWan, who, for a brief moment, still believed in Anakin. He still had Ahsoka, who, though halfway across the galaxy, still believed in him. He still had those people with him. He just chose to believe that they were all against him. And so, in the end, though Anakin has had a tough life, and though that has led him to turn to the dark side, the reason Anakin turned to the dark side is because he let himself. Well, on that note, this has been a very depressing episode, but this is Star Wars Nerds and Geeks signing off. See you all next time.